Have you ever had the feeling that there is something much bigger than your everyday routine? Something that you can't exactly define but that calls to you like a distant voice? Perhaps a moment of deep reflection awakened in you the realization that there is something out of the ordinary in your life, as if you were beginning to see the world from a new perspective. This is the starting point of a transformative journey that we call spiritual awakening. Although the term may sound mysterious or even esoteric, it describes a very real experience that millions of people around the world report experiencing. It's like opening your eyes to a new reality, perceiving deeper layers of existence that were previously hidden. However, spiritual awakening is not a simple process. It challenges what we know, shakes our beliefs, and invites us to embark on a journey of self-discovery with no return. Unlike many other personal growth processes, spiritual awakening does not follow a straight line. Imagine a spiral, where each turn reveals something new and takes you to a deeper level of understanding. This format reflects the complex nature of the journey. There are ups and downs, advances and setbacks. It is a unique experience for each individual, but at the same time, there are certain common patterns and stages that tie all of these stories together. These stages are like portals, each one marking a new phase of your inner evolution. Along the way, you may feel confused, challenged, and sometimes even lost. But it's important to remember, discomfort is part of the process. It signals that you are breaking old patterns and opening yourself up to new possibilities. Today we will explore the 5 stages of spiritual awakening. These stages are reference points that help you understand where you are in the journey and what you can expect as you progress. Throughout this narrative, you will be guided by deep insights that not only explain each phase, but also offer tools to navigate them with more clarity and purpose. The journey begins in the most familiar place for all of us, the state of unconsciousness. At this stage, we live on autopilot, governed by our thoughts and emotions without questioning ourselves about them. Here, the ego, the part of us that identifies with our personal history, our fears and our desires, completely dominates our perception of reality. You may be wondering, what exactly is the ego? The ego is like a lens we use to see the world. It filters everything we experience, distorting reality to align with our beliefs and past experiences. In the state of unconsciousness, we are so caught up in this lens that we believe it is who we really are. Our thoughts, emotions, and automatic reactions become our identity. In the unconscious stage, reactivity dominates our lives. Have you ever noticed how you often react to situations without thinking? Whether in traffic, in an argument, or in moments of frustration, the reaction is immediate, almost instinctive. This happens because, in this state, there is no space for conscious reflection. The ego controls our actions, and life seems to be something that happens to us rather than something we actively shape. This pattern of reactivity creates a vicious cycle. When we face difficulties or traumas, we reinforce the idea that we are victims of circumstances. This fuels negative emotions such as anger, resentment, and frustration, making it difficult to escape this mental prison. Another striking aspect of the state of unconsciousness is the way it affects our relationships. Because we are so caught up in our own experiences and projections, we have difficulty seeing others clearly. We interpret their actions and words based on our insecurities, creating misunderstandings and emotional barriers. This lack of clarity not only harms our interpersonal connections, it also distorts our worldview. Everything seems fragmented, disjointed, and often hostile. The result is emotional isolation that separates us even further from reality. As challenging as this internship is, it is not permanent. At some point, a spark of insight appears. Maybe it's a defining experience, like a loss, a crisis, or even a moment of tranquility where something clicks. This spark is the beginning of awakening, a recognition that there is something beyond the ego and the narratives it has created. This moment of realization may be brief, but it is transformative. It marks the starting point for a journey of self-discovery that will take you to explore deeper layers of your existence. From here, the path becomes an active search for answers and a more meaningful connection with life. If the state of unconsciousness is where the spiritual journey begins, the next stage represents a transformative turn, the death of the ego. This phase, as powerful as it is challenging, is where the individual begins to question everything they believe to be true about themselves and the world. Before we go any further, it is important to understand what ego death really means. Contrary to what the name may suggest, it is not a literal death, but rather a dissolution of the constructed identity. Imagine the ego as a mask we use to interact with the world. This mask is made up of labels, beliefs, and narratives that we accumulate throughout our lives. Our name, our profession, our opinions, our culture, and even our traumas. Ego death is the process of taking off that mask and realizing that it is not who we really are. Ego death is often triggered by a significant event, such as a personal crisis, an unexpected loss, or even a moment of spiritual clarity. These events act as a catalyst, disrupting the ego structure and leaving the individual exposed to a new perspective. This collapse can be scary. Without the labels and identities that we previously defined as self, a feeling of emptiness arises. This emptiness, however, is not something to fear. It is, in fact, an open space for the birth of a new way of being. It's like clearing land to build a new house. It's a necessary process, but it requires patience and courage. It is at this point that the I observer begins to emerge. Unlike the ego, the observing self does not identify with thoughts, emotions, or narratives. It is the part of us that simply observes the experience without judgment or attachment. During the unconscious stage, the observing self was obscured by the ego. But as the ego dissolves, the observing self becomes more evident. It offers us a new perspective on life, allowing us to see our thoughts and emotions as temporary events rather than absolute truths. This change of perspective is liberating. The individual begins to realize that they are not defined by their thoughts or emotions, but rather by something much greater, a consciousness that transcends the ego. Although ego death is a profoundly transformative experience, it can also be extremely challenging. Many people report feelings of confusion, sadness, and even fear during this phase. After all, we are leaving behind everything we believe to be true about ourselves. It is a process of mourning, but also of rebirth. One of the biggest challenges of this phase is dealing with the discomfort of emptiness. Without ego narratives, we can feel lost, without direction. However, it is important to remember that this emptiness is not an end, but a beginning. It is a space of infinite potential where we can rebuild our lives in a more authentic way and aligned with our true essence. Over time, emptiness begins to give way to a feeling of freedom. Without the limitations imposed by the ego, the individual begins to experience life in a completely new way. There is less judgment, less attachment, and more presence. This freedom is not something that can be explained in words. It is something that can only be experienced. After the death of the ego and the emergence of the observing self, the next stage of spiritual awakening is marked by a deep desire to understand the meaning of existence. This moment is known as the phase of spiritual search and exploration, a transformative stage in which the individual begins to seek answers to life's most fundamental questions. When the ego loses its influence and the observing self becomes more evident, a void arises. This void, far from being negative, functions as a fertile space for new ideas and possibilities. It is at this moment that the search begins. The individual begins to ask himself, who am I really? What is the purpose of life? What is truth? These questions are not superficial. They come from a deep place, driven by a visceral need to understand the essence of existence. During this phase, the search is not just for concrete answers, but for experiences that bring meaning and connection. For many, the search begins with spiritual practices that promise to open doors to deeper dimensions of understanding. Meditation, yoga, prayer, contemplation, and even the practice of mindfulness become powerful tools in this process. Meditation, for example, helps to silence the mind and create space for intuition to emerge. It is like cleaning the mirror of consciousness, allowing the individual to see themselves and the world more clearly. Yoga, on the other hand, connects the body and mind, creating a harmony that facilitates access to higher states of consciousness. These practices are not just rituals. They function as bridges to a broader reality, helping the seeker to connect with something greater than themselves. In addition to spiritual practices, many people turn to external sources of knowledge during this phase. Philosophy books, religious texts, teachings from spiritual masters, and even videos and documentaries about spirituality become guides on this journey. These resources offer not only information but also inspiration. However, it is important to remember that the search is not about accumulating knowledge. It's about absorbing what resonates with one's inner truth. During this phase, the individual learns to discern between what is useful for their journey and what is just noise. Another striking aspect of this phase is the search for a connection with the divine. For some, this means a deeper relationship with God or a higher power. For others, it is a feeling of unity with the universe, where everything is interconnected. This connection is not something that can be explained rationally. It is a direct experience, often described as a feeling of peace, unconditional love, or presence. Moments of epiphany, in which the individual feels a sudden and profound understanding, are common during this phase. Although the search phase is enriching, it also brings challenges. Questioning long-held beliefs can be uncomfortable, especially if those beliefs were deeply rooted in the individual's identity. Furthermore, the desire to find quick answers can lead to frustration. Another common challenge is loneliness. A spiritual quest is a deeply personal journey, and it can often feel like no one around understands what is happening. However, this loneliness is temporary and is part of the growth process. Despite the challenges, the search phase is full of moments of discovery. Every insight, no matter how small, brings a new perspective. The individual begins to see the world in a different way, noticing connections and meanings that previously went unnoticed. These moments of clarity are like small steps on an infinite ladder. Each step brings us closer to a deeper understanding of who we are and our place in the universe. After an intense phase of search, where the individual explored spiritual truths, practices, and internal connections, the time comes for a great flowering, the emergence of the authentic self. This stage is characterized by a deep reconnection with the genuine essence of who we are, free from masks, labels, and social conditioning. Imagine looking into a clean mirror for the first time. There are no distortions, just the pure reflection of who you really are. This is the impact of the emergence of the authentic self. After breaking through the ego and exploring the depths of his existence, the individual begins to realize his true nature. It's like coming home, but a home that has always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. The authentic self is not something we create. It is our natural essence, the one that existed before we were shaped by society's expectations, education, or cultural influences. It's the part of us that knew freedom before we learned the meaning of limitations. One of the first signs of the emergence of the authentic self is the inability to continue wearing social masks. What once seemed natural, pretending, pleasing, or conforming to external expectations, now becomes unbearable. The individual feels increasing discomfort when trying to fit into roles that do not correspond to their true essence. This process can be challenging, especially in a world that often rewards conformity. However, discomfort is an indication that the authentic self is emerging. It's like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. There is effort, but there is also beauty and freedom on the other side. With the emergence of the authentic self, relationships undergo a significant transformation. The individual begins to reevaluate the connections they maintain. Unbalanced relationships, based on dependence or manipulation, begin to fall apart. This does not happen out of anger or resentment, but because these connections no longer resonate with the individual's new vibration. On the other hand, authentic connections, based on mutual respect and understanding, begin to flourish. There is a greater openness to vulnerability and a willingness to be seen as one really is. The authentic self is not afraid to show its flaws, as it knows that they are part of the totality of its existence. In addition to relationships, everyday life also changes radically during this stage. The individual begins to seek occupations, hobbies, and lifestyles that are aligned with their true essence. Jobs that once felt fulfilling can now feel empty. Goals based on status or external validation lose their importance. This process can lead to significant changes, such as changing careers, moving cities, or even adopting a simpler lifestyle. These changes are not made on impulse, but as a result of a deep understanding of what really matters. The emergence of the authentic self also involves an internal transformation. The individual begins to recognize patterns of behavior that no longer serve their growth. Old traumas and emotional wounds that were previously ignored or repressed now come to the surface, ready to be healed. This is a cleansing and purifying process. It involves confronting parts of ourselves that may be uncomfortable, but it is also deeply liberating. By accepting these parts rather than denying them, the individual begins to integrate their wholeness, light and shadow, strength and vulnerability. Like every stage of spiritual awakening, the emergence of the authentic self brings its own challenges. Dropping the masks and living in truth can be intimidating, especially in a world that often rewards superficiality. There is also the possibility of resistance from others. Friends, family, or colleagues may not understand the change, and some may even try to discourage the process. However, these challenges are opportunities to reinforce the commitment to authenticity. Another common challenge is dealing with uncertainty. Without the anchors of ego and old narratives, the individual may feel lost. But it is in this space of uncertainty that true freedom resides. This is where the authentic self finds its strength. One of the most striking characteristics of this stage is the return to the authenticity experienced in childhood. Before we were shaped by social expectations, we were free, curious, and spontaneous. The emergence of the authentic self reconnects us with this energy. It is not a literal return to childhood, but rather a rediscovery of the qualities we had before we were conditioned. It's like finding the purity of a child within an adult who has gone through challenges, learning, and growth. The final stage of spiritual awakening is the culmination of the journey. Live a life in alignment. This stage goes beyond discovering the authentic self. Here, all parts of existence, mind, body, and soul, come into harmony. It is where the individual not only understands their true essence, but also lives it fully, integrating it into every aspect of life. Living in alignment means being completely in tune with who you really are. It's not about achieving perfection, but about accepting and integrating all parts of yourself, the strengths, the weaknesses, the lights, and the shadows. It is a state of authenticity that manifests itself in thoughts, actions, and relationships. At this stage, the individual is no longer guided by external expectations or fear of judgment. Decisions are made based on an internal sense of purpose and meaning. There is a deep peace that permeates life, even in the face of challenges and adversity. One of the pillars of life in alignment is the integration of the mental, physical, and spiritual dimensions of existence. During earlier stages, these dimensions may have seemed disconnected, as if each functioned independently. However, in the final stage, they come together in a harmonious symphony. In alignment, the mind is no longer dominated by obsessive thoughts or automatic patterns. There is a clarity and focus that emerges naturally. This does not mean an absence of thoughts, but rather an ability to observe them without being controlled by them. The body. Many individuals report a deeper connection to their health and well-being. Conscious eating, physical exercise, and practices that promote balance become an integral part of the routine. The soul. Finally, the soul finds its space to shine. There is a sense of purpose and a connection to something greater, be it the universe, God, or the very essence of being. This connection brings a sense of unity that transcends the individual. Living in alignment is not limited to the relationship with yourself. It also transforms the way we relate to others. At this stage, there is a natural overflow of compassion and empathy. The individual recognizes that each person is on their own unique journey and therefore deserves understanding and respect. Conflicts, when they arise, are approached calmly and maturely. Instead of reacting impulsively, the individual in alignment seeks to understand the other's perspective and find solutions that are beneficial to everyone involved. Furthermore, forgiveness becomes a natural practice. It is no longer necessary to carry the weight of resentment or hurt, as there is a deep understanding that everyone is doing the best they can, based on their current consciousness. Another striking aspect of this stage is the deep connection with nature and the universe. The individual begins to realize that they are not separate from the world around them, but rather intrinsically interconnected with everything. With nature, each tree, river, mountain, or animal comes to be seen as an extension of one's own being. This connection is not just an idea, but a lived experience that awakens feelings of gratitude and awe. With the universe, there is also a sense of belonging to the cosmos. The stars, the sky, and the flow of life itself are perceived as parts of a greater whole. This perception brings deep peace, as the individual understands that they are part of something infinite and eternal. Living in alignment does not mean ignoring difficulties or denying the dark aspects of life. Rather, it involves accepting the duality of existence, light and darkness, joy and pain, success and failure. This acceptance is not done with resignation, but with a sense of balance and perspective. By embracing the totality of life, the individual finds an inner strength that transcends external circumstances. He recognizes that each experience, no matter how challenging, has something to teach and contributes to personal growth. The benefits of this stage are profound and cover all areas of life. Here are some of the most notable. Inner peace. The mind ceases to be a battlefield, and inner peace becomes the basis of existence. There is a clear sense of purpose that guides every action and decision. Healthy relationships. Interpersonal connections are based on authenticity, respect, and understanding. Physical well-being. The body responds positively to alignment with greater vitality and health. Resilience. Life's challenges are faced with courage and equanimity. Although life in alignment is the final stage of spiritual awakening, it is not a fixed destination. Awakening is an ongoing journey, where each day brings new opportunities for learning and growth. It is a dynamic process where the individual continues to evolve and deepen their connection with life. Living in alignment is like dancing with life. There are moments of fast pace and others of calm, but each step is guided by an inner harmony that transcends rational understanding. The final stage of spiritual awakening is an invitation to live fully, authentically, and in alignment with the essence of who we truly are. It represents the integration of everything we have learned along the journey, allowing us to live with purpose, presence, and connection. If you've made it this far, remember, each stage of awakening is unique and deeply personal. There is no rush or competition. The spiritual journey is a path that unfolds at your own pace, guided by the wisdom of your soul. Thank you for embarking on this journey. May your life be an expression of alignment and wholeness. Until next time.